Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. All right, I'm excited to continue our monthly Director Spotlight series. This is a series called our Taste Director Series, where each month we'll just turn the spotlight on a specific filmmaker. We'll turn the spotlight on a director. We'll tell you a little bit about their background. We'll share 3 or 4 films from his filmography to give you a taste of the types of films that director has made and their contribution to the world of cinema. Now, as I said many times before, choosing 3 or 4 films from a director's filmography is probably not going to give you the full depth and breadth of that director's work, especially if they've been doing this for multiple decades, as is the case for this director I'll talk about today. But the idea is to just give you a sample of that director's work, just to give you an idea of the types of films that director has made in their filmography. And it could be, in many cases for you, a new discovery of a filmmaker that you've not dived into their work before. So for me, one of the great things I love about my film journey is the discovery of new filmmakers, oftentimes from comments from you in the comments section, or other BlueTubers, or just reading articles out there on the internet. I'll come across new directors from the Criterion Collection releases and filmmakers that I've never heard of before, films I've never heard of before, and it all amounts to just new discoveries for me. So that's part of the purpose of this series, is to introduce folks to filmmakers from around the world, the types of films that they make, so that if you haven't explored that director's work yet, here's a great opportunity to get started. So today I'm really excited to share with you my thoughts on one of my all-time favorite directors. This is one of the greatest directors of all time. He's legendary. He is certainly someone that you've probably heard of. He's none other than Charlie Chaplin, Charles Chaplin, an all-time famous director. Started out in silent cinema, slowly made the transition to sound cinema, and just had one of the most illustrious careers in Hollywood as a director, as an actor, as a producer, as a songwriter, just you name it. Charlie Chaplin could do it all. And so I am more than honored to have the opportunity to sit down for a few minutes and just share with you a few thoughts about Charlie Chaplin. And I want to hear in the comment section below what you think about this amazing filmmaker, actor, producer, impresario. The man did it all. So who was Charlie Chaplin? Well, Charlie Chaplin was born in 1889. He was born in London, England. So he was British. He was Charles Spencer Chaplin, and his upbringing coming up as a child was very challenging. He was raised in poverty, had a lot of hardship in his family, and he discovered a passion for performing at a very early age as a performer. So he had the performing bug from the time of his childhood. So he was born in 1889. By the time 1914 rolled around, he had made his way to Hollywood, and it was there that he began his journey to revolutionize filmmaking. He started off with his iconic character called the Tramp, with this trademark outfit, mustache, the hat, and the whole outfit. He brought laughter and heart to the silver screen in that Tramp character, and just some of the greatest, amazing films of all time come from this director in those early silent films. And so he had a way of blending comedy and drama in his films, and was just incredible. In 1919, so 5 years after moving to the United States, he co-founded a distribution company called United Artists. And so that gave him a lot of creative control over the films that he was making. Charlie Chaplin was an absolute perfectionist, and he took the time to make his films perfect. And he was a master craftsman at his work. He would shoot scenes over and over again just to get it absolutely right. And he was just a technical magician, so to speak. His first feature film is one of my top 25 favorite films of all time. It's called The Kid, which is this film right here in the Criterion Collection from 1921. And it is, well, there's a 1921 original version, and then it was like recut in 1972, but just an absolutely amazing, amazing film. I don't think recut is the right word, but there's a re-release of it in 1972. But originally the film came out in 1921, starred Jackie Coogan in that role. Of course, Jackie Coogan was Uncle Fester, I believe, in The Monsters. but he played this child star right here in this film with Charlie Chaplin and the kid. Absolutely amazing performance in an amazing film. So that was Charlie Chaplin's first feature film, and he stayed in the silent era for quite some time. So he started out with his first feature film in 1921, but by the time the 1930s came along, the talkies started to come on. But Charlie Chaplin went on making silent films for several years into the 1930s before finally relenting and making talkie films. So in 1940, his first sound film was The Great Dictator in 1940, and he satirized Adolf Hitler, which is a very interesting film, of course. And by the time the 1940s came around, he got into some trouble with the government, was accused of some conspiracies, and so he had to flee to Switzerland to live out, I believe, the rest of his days. And he did several other films in the latter part of his career after he had let the tramp character go, such as Monsieur Verdot, Limelight, A King in New York, and A Countess from Hong Kong in 1967. So Charlie Chaplin's career spans multiple decades from the 1920s all the way up to the late 1960s. So an incredibly prolific career. The great thing about Charlie Chaplin is that he directed these films, he produced them, he edited them, he starred in them, and he composed the music for most of his films. And so he had incredible, financial independence and control over his films. And it's just a hallmark of the great work that he did in having control over his intellectual property in these films and being able to do it the way he wanted to do it. And it comes across in the quality of the films that he made. So what can I say about Charlie Chaplin? Just one of the greatest directors, producers, actors of all time, and I love his work. So what are the 4 films that I'm going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to talk about these 4 films here, as well as a few others. But this is a film called City Lights. These are all in the Criterion Collection. This is from 1931. An amazing film by Mr. Charles Chaplin. We also have here The Great Dictator from 1940, his first sound film. This is the movie where he satirized Adolf Hitler. So that's from 1940, which is a pretty interesting time because that was early on in World War II. And so there was a lot that was not known yet around the world about what was going on at that time. So it's kind of interesting seeing a movie from 1940 just from a historical standpoint. Later in his career, you have Monsieur Verdot, and that came out in 1947. Very fascinating film. Here, you have Limelight here toward the end of his career. This came out in 1952. So this is, and just a fantastic film that talks about an aging star. So, which was almost sort of semi-autobiographical, but just an absolutely extraordinary film. All these films are extraordinary, and I'll share a few more as well. But let me talk about City Lights. City Lights, I'll read the back of the case. It says, the most cherished film by Charlie Chaplin is also his ultimate Little Tramp chronicle. The writer, director, star achieved new levels of grace in both physical comedy and dramatic poignancy with this silent tale of a lovable vagrant falling for a young blind woman who sells flowers on the street, a magical Virginia Sherrill, and mistakes him for a millionaire. This is a Depression era movie. This flower. This is just such an incredibly poignant film, and there's certain parts I could name certain parts, but it would spoil the experience for you to do that, or for me to do that by telling you about this part or that part. I'll just suffice to say that this is a film that you want to experience watching for yourself. It is just one of those incredible films. It has some incredibly emotional moments at certain parts that I think you will really enjoy. I don't want to spoil those moments and tell you where they are because you need to experience it for yourself. An incredible film from Charlie Chaplin, City Lights. So definitely check this one out. The Great Dictator is, of course, the film from 1940. It's his first sound film. It says in his controversial masterpiece, The Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin offers both a cutting caricature of Adolf Hitler and a sly tweaking of his own comic persona. Chaplin, in his first pure talkie, brings his sublime physicality to two roles: the cruel yet clownish Tomanian director and the kindly Jewish barber who is mistaken for him. Featuring Jack Oakey and Paulette Goddard in stellar supporting turns, the great dictator boldly going after the fascist leader before the U.S.'s official entry into World War II. So that's very important in terms of where this movie fits historically. It's an audacious amalgam of politics and slapstick that culminates in Chaplin's famously impassioned speech. So an absolutely, extraordinary film. It really stands out as his critique of fascism at that time, and the world didn't even know of all the atrocities that was going on over in Europe, in Germany at that time. Just an extraordinary film and sort of a time capsule, if you would, of a film, given his historical context. So the next film here is Monsieur Verdot. This is from 1947. It says Charlie Chaplin plays shockingly against type in his most controversial film, a brilliant and bleak black comedy about money, marriage, and murder. Chaplin is a 20th century Bluebeard, an enigmatic family man who goes to extreme lengths to support his wife and child, attempting to bump off a series of wealthy widows, including one played by the indefatigable Martha Ray in a hilarious performance. This deeply philosophical and wildly entertaining film is a work of true sophistication, both for the moral questions it dares to ask and for the way it deconstructs its megastar's lovable on-screen persona. So this is probably not among people's favorites of Charlie Chaplin's films, but it is a really good film, as all his films are. Just extraordinary films, extraordinary works. But yeah, another great one from the great Charles Chaplin. This one here I found really interesting. A beautiful human drama. Charlie Chaplin in Limelight, the latter part of his career. It's from 1952. I think this came out a few years ago from Criterion, but check this out. Nice booklet. Criterion does a great job with all of the Chaplin releases. I'm looking forward to the next one, whether it's King of New York or whichever one it is. And I'm wondering if they're going to do any 4K releases of Chaplin's films. I would love to see that happen. But Limelight, Charlie Chaplin's masterful drama about the twilight of a former vaudeville star, is among the writer-director's most touching films. Chaplin plays Calvero, a once beloved musical comedy performer, now a washed-up alcoholic who lives in a small London flat. A glimmer of hope arrives when he meets a beautiful but melancholy ballerina, Claire Bloom, who lives downstairs. An elegant mix of the comic and the tragic, this poignant movie also features Buster Keaton in an extended cameo, marking the only time the two silent comedy icons appear in a film together. So Chaplin and Buster Keaton. Made at a time when Chaplin was under attack by the American press and far right, Limelight was scarcely distributed in the United States upon its initial release, but it is now considered one of his essential and most personal works. So this is quite the film. I mean, it's a departure from the tramp character that we saw in his early career, and it is a performer who is in the limelight of his career, and this is an extraordinary film. So definitely recommend that you check these 4 films out. If you're new to Charlie Chaplin's filmography, I think these are 4 films to get you started. Of course, you have this wonderful silent film, City Lights. You have his very first talkie film, The Great Dictator. You have a couple of films getting later into his career with Monsieur Verdot and with, of course, Limelight here. So it just gives you a nice sampling of films from the director's filmography that gives you a pretty good taste of what Charlie Chaplin has contributed to the world of cinema with these 4 films. Of course, it does not end there. There are other films that I would highly recommend that I have in my collection from Charlie Chaplin, including one of my top 25 favorite films of all time, The Kid. So I highly recommend this title. Amazing, amazing movie starring Jackie Coogan as a child star, and his story is pretty extraordinary, Jackie Coogan's story, and you get a lot of that on some of the features on that disc. You have The Gold Rush. There's 2 versions of it, actually. There's the 1942 version. There's the 1925 original and the 1942 version that's on here. So this is a great, great title right here. The Gold Rush. Highly recommend that. Just an amazing film. I really enjoyed. This is probably the most recent one I've picked up, and it is The Circus. This is from 1928, I believe. Yeah, 1928, and then it has here 1969. I think it was redone. Just amazing. This is so good, so good. And then, of course, up on the screen here, you have this, I believe, 1936. Yes, 1936, 87 minutes is Modern Times. One of Charlie Chaplin's finest films. Such a good movie. Love Modern Times. So those are 4 more of his titles that I would highly recommend. They're all in the Criterion Collection from director Charlie Chaplin. So yeah, so there you have it. Those are the films that I wanted to cover in this Taste of Director series for the great Charles Chaplin. Let me know in the comments section below, what are some of your favorite films from this amazing director? What is your absolute favorite film from Charlie Chaplin? And if you have never seen a film from this director, which film do you plan on diving into first? All of these titles that I just named here, whether it's City Lights, The Great Dictator, Monsieur Verdot, Limelight, or these other films here, like The Kid, The Circus, The Gold Rush, and Modern Times, all of these titles that make for excellent recommendations for the upcoming 50% off sale in July. So definitely let me know in the comment section below, which of these titles grabs you the most, and which ones are you looking to pick up in the upcoming sale, and what are your favorites from Charlie Chaplin? Let me know all of that goodness in the comment section below, and as always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.